Welcome back to the channel, guys. So today we are building Baccus 6mm townhouses. Now, like the hovels, I did purchase these back in the mid-noughties, so I'm not sure if they're still available. I should double check. Anyway, they're great looking houses. They came in two parts, the main body and the roof, and just stick them together. I think they were made of resin, so they were a sort of yellow colour. So I started off with a grey base coat. Then, just for the look that I was going for, I went with a sort of whitewashed appearance. So just got my white, and in effect I was just dry brushing it on, just building up some layers of white across it, whilst still maintaining a little bit of the darker grey showing through. They do have very good details. That's one thing I will say about Baccus. I've got a lot of their 6mm miniatures in Napoleonic, War of the Roses, and across the board I'm very satisfied with them. I think they're a great manufacturer and they do a great job. I'm a big fan of the smaller scales, just because they allow you to have so many troops on the table and you have that spectacle. And on these houses they don't fail to deliver. I've also found that depending on, and this is a topic for another video, but depending on the actual scale, like table scale that you're going for, even though this is a 6mm house, you could use 15mm figures around it. For the rooftops here, just sort of changing subject, I started off with an orange, just going for that sort of more Southern European pan-tile-y effect, just to break it up a little bit more, but it doesn't really matter. It could be found in most places throughout Europe, I would imagine. But yeah, as I was saying, so although these are 6mm, when you have a base which is representing an entire regiment, or in some cases brigades, on the table, and you put it next door to a house like this, the scale is obviously out drastically, unless you're playing a 1-for-1 game where one 6mm figure is one man. So then having 2 or 3 of these houses would represent a town, rather than just an individual house. But then again, if you've got a 15mm game where each man is representing one man, then you could have them dotted around it, and it could actually be more, to a certain extent, accurate than having the 6mm ones. But again, it all depends on the type of game you're playing. Here you can see, so I've just used a dark brown to paint the doors and the window surrounds. I did the same on all 3 of them, just so they would look kind of uniform. And for the glass, although glass isn't blue, I just went with a nice sort of sky blue for those, just so they stand out quite nicely. It's reflecting a nice sunny blue sky. Next, I made up a wash. I mixed a bit of black with dark brown. I was kind of trying to make a sort of Agrax Earthshade inspired colour, and yeah, I just washed it all over. I also mixed in a little bit of spray brush flow improver from Liquitex and Liquitex Matte Medium, which is what I always do when I'm making my washes, as I find it gives it a slight sheen, a slight bit of gloss, even though it's matte, which is kind of ironic. Maybe that's the flow aid, I'm not sure. But either way, it gives it a slight sheen without it being overly glossy, which is what I like. I don't like miniatures when they're all glossed up and they're just too shiny, but I do like it just to pick out certain edges, which I think looks nice. Although it goes on quite dark, it does dry lighter, so overall I think it worked quite nicely with these houses. But yes, I do intend to do a video at some point, once I've got my backlog of others all sorted, regarding scale, both in the actual heights of the miniatures themselves, but also in the ground scale, and you're about, yeah, so that's what I was saying about the houses. what are you representing? What is your one man representing? Is he a single person? Is it a skirmish game? Is it a company game, a platoon game, a brigade? And yeah, it's quite an interesting subject just across the board. So I think that'll be quite an interesting video to make. And then you could go down the rabbit hole and go into all the different scales of railroads. I'm not really a railroad enthusiast, although I do like the scenery. So I wouldn't have a clue really about what the difference is between N scale and HO scale and how they really confer over to millimeters. But maybe it's something to look into. So once they dried, again, I went back to the original colour and just added a little bit of bone to it this time, so it wasn't just a straight white. And then I just dry brushed the whole thing. Went over the wood, went over the brick, just across the board, including the roof. And overall, again, it picked out the detail just nicely without having to go too crazy. So a nice, quick and easy project. Yeah, I would quite like to get a few more of these houses, but I need to double check on their website and see if they still do them. I remember when I first purchased, I think I probably got about 6 to 12 of them, and then over the years they just got lost, and then we moved to New Zealand, and from 6 we ended up with, or 12 or however many it was, yeah, we ended up with 3 large houses and 6 of the hovels. We did have a whole Star Fortress, and that's been reduced down to about 6 parts as well. So yeah, a lot happens over 15 years. Sometimes I kick myself for the amount of miniatures that I had when I was a kid and got lost, or you did stupid things with and broke them, and now you look back and just wish, oh, I wish I had those now. I mean, I had the Warhammer 40,000 2nd edition box set, and at the time you're a kid playing, you don't really think about it, but now you look back and you're like, oh, I wish I had those miniatures, just for the nostalgia more than anything. But oh well, they're toys, they're to be played with, and I enjoyed them, so that's what's important. Yeah, so I decided that the roof needed just a little bit more of a highlight in the sort of orange colour, so I added a bit of the orange to the bone colour, and that's then picked it out just nicely, rather than just being the bone on the walls. And that's pretty well brought us to the end. So again, when you put them on the bases, they actually stand out pretty nicely. I'm very happy with the way they look. They just sort of sit in there nicely. The fact that they're 6mm from a distance doesn't really show any lack of detail, is what I'm getting at. So very high quality, top marks to Baccus 6mm. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. I hope you liked it. Please subscribe. Please leave some comments as well. It's good to get a conversation going. And I'll see you next time.